This morning, we focus on the controversy surrounding the alleged invasion of the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital by EFCC operatives, an incident that has sparked outrage within the medical community and led to an indefinite strike action by doctors in Akwa Ibom State. The Nigerian Medical Association has condemned the alleged assault and arrest of doctors and hospital staff during the operation, demanding accountability and a public apology from the FCC. Joining us via Zoom is the Chief Medical Director of the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital, Professor Emem Bassey, to share his perspective on the issue and the aftermath of the incident. Professor Bassey, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, good morning. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. We also would like for our viewers to join the conversation on the numbers on the screen, 020-1635-2013 or 0902-416-3440. You can tweet us at TVC Connect using the hashtag YourViewTVC. You can stream with us live on YouTube as well. And we're live on DSTV 164. Good morning again, Prof.
I can hear you even though your connection appears not too clear. But I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So my first question really would be, if you could walk us through what happened, exactly on that day with the EFCC operatives and at the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital. And then at what point did the situation escalate, we've heard that it's been described as an invasion and an assault. Could you walk us through what happened on the day, please?
Well, what I would say is that I think everything that happened that day basically is on public space. Sometime on the 13th, I did give, a press interview, which I narrated all the details. Mm-hmm. And I think there's really too much traction, a lot of false narratives out there. But it suffices to say, just in summary, that on the 12th, some EFCC operatives came to the hospital, and well, there was an altercation which turned, ugly. It was basically totally avoidable if rules of engagement and new protocols had been followed. And basically this happened, they had written us on the 20th, or reminded us on the written on the 20th of April, reminding that they had sent a letter on the 11th of March to authenticate the medical report of one of their suspects. And like I pointed out, we never received the letter of the 11th, because if it had been received, there would have been a copy, you understand, on the registry, showing that that had been received. But that was never received. But following the receipt of the letter dated the 20th, which came on the 21st of April, like I did, I had acted on it immediately, related to the responsible persons to authenticate. Unfortunately, there were a lot of, I would say, some delays. Not necessarily anybody's faults, but possibly institutional faults. And that letter was in the process of actually being authenticated, had been authenticated as of the morning of the 12th of May, which this happened. And a draft was available. When the EFCC operatives came to the office of the Deputy CMAC Clinical Professor, where he actually did show that, oh, this is a draft. All I'm waiting for is for it to be approved by the Chief Medical Director before it's issued out. Along the line, like I said, if maybe those operators are a bit more professional and maybe a bit more patient, what happened would not have happened. And I wasn't physically present, I have to admit. But I received a phone call from my director of administration that according if I can quote him, that some unidentified people had come and gone on security operatives, because I'm told the people that came into effect, to drag Professor Ikwe or arrest him or whatever, were, wearing masks and all that. And even when people challenged them, who are you? They did not say they were EFCC. Apparently, yes, the officer who met Professor Ikwe was a mufti in the office. Had, he knew who, what, and what was going on, but were these other people that came in.
Okay, let me ask
I will
you.
not.
Can you confirm?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, can you confirm to us how many officers came from the EFCC to the hospital? One.
Now, initially,
now I
I
wanted to
think
add a few more
initially the
things.
ones that came, there were about 3 initially.
Okay.
But when they attempted to take, Professor Ekpe away,
Okay.
and there was some resistance, because you don't just walk into a place, you don't have a warrant, you don't have, and then this man is not a suspect or anything, and you want to drag somebody away, and there was some resistance.
Okay.
They apparently radioed for support, and they had backup.
Okay. Was he
And
at the
quite a number
point?
of them did come as
Because
backup.
there were theories out there that he was at the point of getting into the operating room to operate on a patient. Was it at that point he was picked?
No, he wasn't operating on the patient. Like I said, there are a lot of false narratives. He was in his office.
Okay.
A lot of false narratives, and I keep on reiterating. The hospital doesn't have any issues with EFCC.
Okay.
We've worked with them cordially in the past. This is not the first time we've had to authenticate a medical report.
Okay.
We've done that in the past, and we probably will still do that in the future. They bring suspects to us, we treat. Even after that point, there was even one of their suspects that was on admission in that hospital as of that point. So it appears there are a lot of false narratives. What I want to say is that things were not handled properly.
Okay.
On all parties, I think there should have been a little bit more patience on the part of the EFCC operators who came earlier, because within an hour or so, they would have received that medical report.
Okay.
If they had just had some more patience within an hour. This happened in the early hours. Work had just resumed about 9 o'clock when all this was happening. So they would have probably received that medical report, but were not patient. Now, when I agreed for this interview, like I said, there's been too much traction on this particular case. I've had journalists everywhere call me. I've issued out and I had a press briefing, which has been carried extensively. Media attempt to call. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Yes, I have refused to speak to the foreign press.
Okay.
For whatever reasons, because I do not want to be one of those people who will drag Nigeria's name in the mud.
Okay.
So I think a lot has happened. I think it's a learning experience. Let us all learn, because this is not an isolated incident.
Okay.
In the recent past, we've had many in that same hospital. There have been a lot of infractions where we've had security operatives, not just the EFCC, even from the army, police, civil defense have come in at points, either to, assault patients, not just patients, staff. There've been many incidents of that, documented incidents of previously where we've had security agents come in. And just recently, following this incident, we found out that at the level of the Committee of Chief Medical Directors, we found out that in the last 1 year, almost 17 hospitals have recorded similar incidences of, So I think what we need to do, basically, first and foremost, is one, how can we resolve this issue amicably to all parties? Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Prof.
Secondly, how can we prevent these things from happening again?
Yes, those are two important questions. And fortunately, we also have with us the EFCC spokesperson, Mr. Dele Oyewale, and he will be answering some of these questions for us and just confirming what happened on the day. But we have Nima. Nima has a question for you, Professor.
Yes, I wanted to ask, Prof. I like the fact that you said that too many varying accounts of what happened out there. Can you put to truth certain accounts that we have in credible media? Is it true that the Prof or the doctor in question was being arrested for defrauding certain microfinance banks, including the University of Uyo?
No, hell no.
Good.
He wasn't even his only, his only interaction or his only duty was because he's the deputy. You know how a hospital setup runs, a teaching hospital, or you have a chief medical director. Then under him, you have what they call the director of clinical services, who is called chairman medical advisory committee, and then he has his own deputy. So Professor Ekpe, was a deputy who was assigned the job because I minister to the CMAC, and CMAC ministered to him too. You understand, to authenticate this report. Please, I want to state, very clearly that in no circumstances was Professor Ekpe, an accomplice or under any investigation. His own job was simply, and apparently it appears that these people may have received a call from someone in his office saying that that report was ready, whereas it was only in the draft form. So please, Professor Ikpe is a very
what is the nature of the
medical practitioner.
We've just been speaking with the CMD of the UUTH Teaching Hospital, and from what he said this, what happened. He gave us a summary, a little rundown of what happened at the hospital on the day of the altercation, and he's saying that it was impatience that turned it around, that they have dealt with EFCC many times. It shouldn't have turned into what it did. Could you give us on your own account of what happened and why it escalated on the day?
Thank you for having me on the program. I have listened very attentively to what Professor Bassey said, but there's something that he left out, which I will want to clarify. The EFCC operative that came, they went to the hospital on a normal administrative routine to authenticate a report, a medical report, that a suspect that was remanded by a federal high court in Uyo presented, he presented a medical report. And as a law enforcement agency, you have to authenticate the originality and even the authenticity of the report.
Okay.
Now, the commission wrote to the hospital March 11, seeking the confirmation, seeking the authenticity of the report. There was no feedback. Another letter was written April 20. And of course, we have to report back to the court. So on the eve of the court sitting, our operative went back to the hospital, and they went there, just one or two officers went there on a normal administrative thing. There was no show of force. They went there, oh, this report, please, we have been waiting. Can you confirm this for us so that we can go to court and address the court on the originality of the report? But something happened. The chief medical director, who was not available at that time, he was briefed that, oh, so officers, they came, and he quickly called the police, that, oh, there are some unknown law enforcement officers in my premises, and I've asked them to lock the gate. That's where the problem started.
I may have to interrupt you. I did not want to join issues.
Okay.
I didn't want to join issues
Professor.
because I've spoken, because you are giving a very false narrative, sir. You were not there.
Okay, Professor, just, because of time and as you know, TV, we just have limited slots. Could we just listen to Mr. Oyewale first, and then we can have follow-up questions or follow-up rejoinders, please? Mr. Oyewale, please continue.
Oh, so what really happened, because we have our officers that went there, and when the gates were locked, you can find out from any law enforcement agency, you don't lock gates against law enforcement officers. It will be taken as if they are captured. So when that thing happened, they had to call the office that, oh, this thing that we came to authenticate, this is what happened. Can you send us a reinforcement? Even the police commissioner had to send some men to be able to protect the EFCC officers that were there. The gates were not locked.
Again, that is a very false narrative, but I will speak at the end. Please continue.
Now, if the gates were not locked, there would have been
at what point were these gates locked? You have to ask yourself, at what point were the gates locked? The gates were locked after your men assaulted Professor Ekpe. And I put a call across to the Commissioner of Police based on the information I was given. I was actually on my way to the office. based on the information I was given by my DA. I wish we could solve these issues because
No.
this
Okay, we
narratives
can-
flying around
Gentlemen.
are causing problems.
Gentlemen,
I wouldn't
Are
want
causing
to-
problems.
I wouldn't want to bandy words with Professor
Prof,
Bassey.
I'm not going
Professor
to
Bassey.
Please, I would not bandy words
Pro-
with you. I hold you.
Professor
in high
Bassey.
regard, but you have helped to escalate this problem by issuing
Yeah.
some of those statements.
okay, Professor
which were not
What I'm
Bassey,
correct.
trying to say-
Professor Bassey, please, I hear you, and it's okay for you to feel how you do, but can we just wait for Mr. Oyewale to finish? Once he finishes, I promise
Yeah,
I'll give you the time
rejoinder.
to make a rejoinder. Please.
Place in
If
perspective.
I had,
what
in
we
all
have-
honesty, please, TVC News, if in all honesty, if I had known I was ambushed, because I was never told when I accepted that I was going to speak with the EFCC spoke, I would not have agreed.
You're speak-
Because to a large extent, he has been responsible for some of this by those press statements which has issued. And there are people on ground.
Okay.
I want to ask you, is UUTH, what are we? Are we hooligans in that place? Why do you think people with crisis would ensure if your officers behaved civilly? Your officers went to that place. I didn't want to call names, but I could mention the name of the officer who went there, entered Professor Ekpe's office, and Professor Ekpe talked to him, showed him the draft. He went out. When he went out of the office, the next thing he invited the other officers who were with him, 2 other persons who were hooded or masked, to come and they were saying, arrest that criminal. There were eyewitnesses in that office. It was the people in Professor Ekpe's office that raised the alarm and shouted. Because Professor Ekpe knowing his rights,
Okay.
why are you arresting me?
Professor
Why
Bassey.
you just authenticate a medical report? Why would you want to arrest a medical doctor, a whole professor,
That makes
over a medical report? Was he a criminal? Was he a suspect?
okay,
There are
Professor
rules of
Bassey. Those are
engagement.
valid
And I want
questions.
to ask you, at what point was the gate locked?
Okay.
The gate was only locked after
Prof,
I
you
put
have
a
not-
call to the Commissioner of
you have
Police.
not allowed
And he
Professor-
said he was sending some men. No,
Okay.
please, sir. We are on national TV. Please, can we solve this problem?
Prof, you
This
have not
unnecessary
allowed-
digging in is not helping us.
Okay, let me step in here,
It's not
Professor.
helping.
Professor, let me step in here. Can I step in, please? Mr. Oyewale, he's asked some questions. He has disagreed with some of your statements. Can you confirm what he has said? Could you have been misinformed by your colleagues when they went to the hospital? Is there a possibility that the what you received is not exactly what may have happened on that day?
Our own side of the story. He has his own side, we have our own side. But clearly, there was a crisis of engagement. There was a crisis of protocol. There was a crisis of reception of the officer that came. And everything that happened as a result of all of this crisis. Now, our officer that went to that place, they came with a report. Professor Ekpe was not arrested. He was invited to the office.
Sir, please,
And Professor Bassey, you followed him. You are with him.
Sir, please, do you invite? I followed him when I came. I followed not only him. You arrested about 5 of my staff. Let's be honest and speak the truth. We're on national TV. Sir, do you invite somebody by dragging somebody on the floor? He was dragged. There are videos to that. Would you invite someone by dragging somebody on the floor? If you invite somebody, you invite, you have to tender documents, or you are very civil. He was right to say, I'm not following you. Where is what? Why are you called? For he doesn't have any issues with you. But people were violent and started dragging him. He refused. He was on the floor. He was dragged on the floor. And I'm stating eyewitness accounts, people who were there. All these people could not be lying. Please, I want to beg, how can we solve this problem?
Yes.
As we speak, the
Now,
hospital has been shut
that
since
is-
Tuesday. People are dying.
That is the crux of the matter. The reason
are
why
dying.
Over medical
The
reports.
reason why I have to state our own side of the issue, because I listened to Prof when Prof was talking. He talked about this of
I tried not to go because I
Prof,
have already
can
stated
you
the facts.
allow
Why am
Mr.
I over?
Oyewale,
Everybody knows these facts. You
Okay,
understand?
now-
Everybody knows
Professor-
the facts.
Professor,
Now, I think we should move away from all of these narratives, because Prof himself he said that there are false narratives here and there. So I think the best way to address this issue is for us to come together and look at what should be done so that the strike that
Mr. Oyewale, sorry to interrupt you.
In the interest of our people.
Yes.
But there is something that I also want to establish. When Prof was talking, he said that they have had about 17 incidences of law enforcement agents coming to
Mr. Oyewale, let me interject here so that we don't digress from the topic right now. Yeah. Something has happened at the University Teaching Hospital in Uyo. I would like us to concentrate on that. And I'm also happy that Professor wants us to move on. We're looking for solutions going forward. One of the questions I would have liked to ask is, what could have happened to have allowed your personnel, the EFCC personnel, to make a situation like that escalate to the point that, we're hearing that people are being dragged, we're hearing that tear gas were being thrown in, and some allege that there were even some live rounds that were shot on the day. What is the process of going to collect information from the hospital, even when there is a, what would you call it, when there's resistance to that? Is there a more civil way of retrieving this information without allowing it escalate to what we are looking at right now on the screen? So that's one. And the second thing is, all of us here, Nigerians as well, and the professor has said, let's look for how to do things better. What is the solution? Remember, we're talking of a hospital that's been shut down. That's lives that are on the line right now, sir. So we're trying to solve these issues. What are the necessary steps to take to solve this issue?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can speak to that. Hello.
Okay.
I think the first thing to do is let us all, this has happened. And even as I speak, many of my colleagues are not comfortable with my position, because my position has been, let us resolve these issues, let's resolve these issues and get back to work.
Yes.
People feel that, I should be shouting, fire and brimstone and all that. I'm an administrator. And I think my cardinal job basically is to ensure that that hospital functions properly and functions to the best of its ability. The hospital remaining shut, is not to anybody's best interest.
Exactly.
And I would say that two wrongs do not make a right. We can start by actually admitting the truth, what really happened. Because it appears that some people are unnecessarily defensive. I do not blame the spokesperson of EFCC, because he's also saying what, he has been told, that certain people will want to do. And I would keep on saying that if you invite somebody who is not even a suspect, you are inviting. There are rules of engagement.
Okay.
You don't invite somebody. It's not some operative on the field or who came on purely and say that I will now invite somebody. You invite somebody with, a letter or something.
That's true.
Due process must be followed to invite somebody.
Professor, thank you for that.
The way and the manner in which they attempted to do this invitation was not correct.
Okay.
They were trying to use force. And if you say now, yes, I did call the police. I called the police based on the information. I was on my way when I was called.
Sorry, Professor, I have to interrupt you. I'm interrupting you because these are points you've made already. And as I said, they're valid. Just so that we can get a response from EFCC and also questions from other ladies.
You have not even allowed me to talk.
Oh, Professor.
I wonder why.
Professor Bassey, please let Mr. Oyewale talk.
You allow both parties to.
Yes, Mr. Oyewale, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Mr. Oyewale.
Now, you see, what I was trying to establish, the Economic and Financial Crime Commission is a very, very responsible law enforcement agency. We don't make defenses for any form of criminality or for any breakdown of law and order. We don't make defenses just for the sake of making defenses. If mistakes are made, if errors are committed, if there is a deliberate breach of the standard operating procedure of the Commission, we have established rules to deal with all those things. We are not going to say that because they are our officers, if they have done something that we know is against the spirit and letter of our mandate, we are not going to condone that. We are not going to defend them. We are not going to say because they are our officers and we will just put up defenses on things that cannot be justified. Okay. No. And the executive chairman, Mr. Olaulokoyede, we all know him. He's a very, very forthright,
is EFCC willing to tender an apology for what happened?
And he has added that investigation should be initiated into this matter. If any officer is found to have compromised our standard operating procedure, the necessary punitive measures will be taken. But we are saying that this is what happened when we went there. And we are open, we really want peaceful resolution of this matter in the interest of Nigerians.
Okay, fantastic. So one of the things that the hospital is also asking, Mr. Oyewale, is an apology. Sorry, Mr. Oyewale, please.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm asking if EFCC is willing to tender an apology for what happened.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Oyewale.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, it looks like we've lost you. We can hear you. We can hear you, sir.
No, I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I asked the question if the EFCC is willing to apologize for how it turned out at the University Teaching Hospital, Uyo.
They conducted themselves.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Professor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor, I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
We can hear both of you loud and clear.
Can hear you.
Please, what I want to say...
They are not clear. It's not...
What I want to say is that for the very first time, I think we made some little progress.
Okay.
And that progress is what the spokesperson, Mr. Oyewale, just said. That let a proper because if you notice, the investor of UUTH Teaching Hospital refused to go. We did not issue any statement until there were these statements flying around from EFCC, from police. We refused. We were a federal institution, refused to issue any statement. The first thing is that can we have that proper investigation and actually see whether due process was followed in this, and then maybe we can make progress.
Professor, in the interim,
can you hear me?
We heard you loud and clear. Thank you, Professor, for that. Thank you.
In the interim, can the teaching hospital be opened while investigation is being done?
If you know my position, I've gone on air to plead with everybody. I've gone to the press to plead with everybody. And I have told them that what happened was unfortunate. My minister has actually pleaded. The governor of Akwa Ibom State, through the deputy, we've had serious interactions and pleading. For whatever reasons, the other unions, all the other health unions have since suspended their strike and have gone back to work.
Okay.
It's just the medical doctors.
Yes, investigations cannot continue on the side.
Yes. Okay. The medical doctors have refused, to, because this was basically one of them. Okay. And
thank you.
I think that if we can still join all of the law-abiding. They just had a meeting yesterday at which I thought some progress was going to be made, and they came out with another communique with a whole list of demands, which I do not know how we can resolve. I wish we could resolve this, but like I said, I'm happy that at least Mr. Oyewale has said that investigation is ongoing. I would ask, please, while you're doing this investigation, could you also hear from our side? Because the investigation is ongoing. We have not received any, we have not received any report, any invitation.
Thank you. We would love to. Professor Bassey, sorry, I have to cut you at this point because we have come to the end of the segment. But I am happy that this seems like, some headway has been made. At least there's the EFCC is talking about an investigation. We seem to please the CMD. So I think that that's one of the first steps to take. And hopefully, at the end of this investigation, beyond this TV show, there will be a sit down and we can see if the hospital will be opened again and some of the demands that are being asked of, of EFCC would be given.
Can I add something?
Nima, I don't know if Nima would like to add.
Yeah.
I think that Prof did not give the spokesperson enough time to respond. The entire issues Prof had outlined, we heard him. I would have loved to hear the EFCC on why they did what they did and what led to what. So that Prof too, it's also important that Prof listens to why their officers had to act the way they did. Because yes, people might have eyewitness accounts of how officers were dragged, but we don't know what led to what.
Okay.
I don't believe that the EFCC will just walk in, even though we've always said that Gestapo-style, raids, that they will just walk into a medical facility
so I hear you, Nima,
and drag officers on the ground. I
it's
wanted
important
to hear
for us to have heard both sides of the story.
Yeah.
Very well. All
And
right.
Prof should please, of course, Prof has an account of what has happened in his facility. I agree.
Okay.
He should please hear whenever they are finally, mediating
that's true.
between them to
other
hear
side.
the
Thank
other
you,
side
ladies.
clearly.
That's all we can take.